Nothing crazy.
Short and sweet.
Yeah. I mean, this is another... It's just like Full Metal. Yeah, it's going to be so easy for us to talk about. So much nostalgia that we have.
Bro, nostalgia was like an understatement. This was the first movie I seen, like Marvel or a superhero movie in theaters.
Save it for the pod.
Oh, I thought we were on.
I didn't bring us in for an intro.
All right. Figure you chop it up sooner or later and to cut me off and ruin the flow.
God forbid we do a cold opening, right? Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Nerd Soup. I am Bo Oliver, joined here today with Marissa and Teddy, and we are back to review Spider-Man 2002. We're going back and we're going to review all the Spider-Man movies. We've gotten quite a few of them. 3 reboots, actually.
This is what you get for cutting me off.
I'm going to have to keep that in, huh? 3 reboots since the start of the 21st century, but we're going to start with the first one, and that is Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Well, really Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, but everybody really associates Tobey Maguire with this movie. He's such an icon. The movie is so iconic. And when you read into the story of how this movie got off the ground, it was in production hell for maybe 2 decades. At one point, James Cameron was going to direct it. They were going to get a young Leonardo DiCaprio to play Spider-Man. Stan Lee wanted to play J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh my God.
But in 2002, we finally got it, and many people consider this still to be one of the greatest superhero movies of all time. And I think you can make the case, along with 2000's X-Men, this is what started it. This was the cinematic superhero Big Bang.
I still remember the day my brother Vinny came in the backyard and said, "Do you want to go see Spider-Man?" This was the first movie I seen in theaters, superhero-wise.
It's the same for me as well.
It was such
I remember seeing this in theaters, man.
I couldn't believe what I was watching. And
what were we, 9 years old when this came out?
I was 5. I definitely didn't see this in theaters.
You probably saw 2 or 3 in theaters,
I remember
right?
seeing 3. I can't remember if I saw 2.
Yeah, but watching the CGI, this was like a whirlwind. And then compared to what we have right now, it still holds up.
It really does hold up. The web swinging holds up.
Not realizing, like I'm older now, and I'm kind of more in tune with the CGI and like what I'm looking at. It does look, I guess it looks bad, but it looks good at the same time. Like it's not like it's crazy bad where it takes you out of the movie.
Yeah,
like,
it's
wow.
not so distracting that you're like, ugh, what am I looking at? You don't know. You're like, oh no, he is climbing up a wall right now, or he is swinging. Who cares if MJ's hair is blowing in the wrong direction?
Well, the use of practical effects as well, where it's clearly CGI, he's swinging, and he lands, and it's Tobey Maguire in the suit. I think that goes a long way. Even the montage, when he's finally embracing being Spider-Man, and you're seeing all the headlines, there's just one shot of him where it's near sunset, and he lets off a web. It's just a great little addition. It lets you know that, yeah, this is actually happening. This kid just became Spider-Man.
I think this was the best movie in terms of Spider-Man's all 3 aspects in life was portrayed in here, with crime fighting, his relationships, and like his economic struggle in New York City. They portrayed all 3 aspects perfectly, because you're not going to live in New York City and not have a job and be okay. I feel like that gets lost in the shuffle too, like the everyday life of Spider-Man.
Yeah, and they're definitely tackling that in the new movie when Strange says it's the struggle between being Peter Parker and being Spider-Man. That's the essence of this character. And like you said, his economic status, having to deal with that as well. But yeah, I think they nailed really mostly everything that goes into what the character of Spider-Man is supposed to be. And that's so rare for the first movie. I mean, obviously we've seen it, but we've seen a lot of shitty superhero movies where they just don't get this character. Sam Raimi, coming off of, making his name off of horror movies, to make a coming-of-age sort of throwback, it's a triumph.
I really think that this is like a perfect origin story, because it nails him becoming Spider-Man, and then like going past that point to, his first like real villain, the struggle of like trying to balance.
Bonesaw?
Oh my God. Bro, the 90s cheese in this movie was spot on.
Bonesaw is
like
ready.
You definitely saw it, and sometimes you're like, eh. But it again, I didn't hate it, where I was like, I really don't like that.
I was watching that scene, and I was like, Tom Holland would never. He would never. Tom Holland, not for a second, would go to an underground wrestling ring
to make $3,000
to make $3,000 to buy a car to impress a girl he likes.
What was $3,000 20 years ago? Still nothing,
right? Well, that's why it's so old school, right? His whole motivation in the first half of this movie is impressing the girl.
Yeah, buying
and even
a car.
though he gets these powers, it's like, well, you know what's more impressive? A car. So, and you made this point to me last night when we were watching the movie, texting back and forth. that nerd culture has sort of changed.
Yeah, the on-screen nerd, I think, is so much different now than it is, or than it was back then. Because back then it was like, you thought of a nerd and it's like, yeah, the loner kid who gets bullied by, you know, like a popular athlete or jock, has like little to no social skills, can't really talk to other people. And Peter 100% nails that. He is such a loner at the beginning of this movie that when he tries to talk to other people, and it's so unbearably awkward to watch.
That's
like,
so funny. Him
I'm
just smiling
cringing.
at MJ. Dude, when so funny.
He's so awkward. Like when Norman Osborn's like, I know it's a tough time. If you need anything, call me. And he's just like, say thank you. What is wrong with you? Don't you know manners?
The only thing, my only bug with this, and I'm sure he heard the noise because he acted on it in Spider-Man 2, was they didn't show how smart Peter Parker was. They hinted at it. They just said he was smart, and we just like went off of that. There wasn't really anything in the show that showed that he was smart.
Part of it is that
no classroom stuff, nothing, no like inventions.
we get a little bit of it in the beginning, but I also think part of it is like he makes his webs organically, and I think if we had seen in this movie that he had to physically make his web fluid, that would have been like a good in for it. Which, not to bring up the Amazing Spider-Man, but they do that in the beginning of the Amazing Spider-Man.
Right. That's why to me this feels like a throwback. Like he was channeling a Christopher Reeve Superman movie where, yeah, it's definitely the essence of Superman. People will still make that argument. But occasionally he's going to rip his ass off his shirt and throw it at you. Where does that come from? That's not from the comics. You have, in this case, he doesn't make the webs organically. They just come from inside of him. So, yeah, they don't focus so much on that aspect. And also people, they complain that he's not quippy enough, that he's not as funny. But like I said, I think the whole, what he's going for, it's an archetype, the nerd archetype that we've seen before. And I said this to you last night. It's a nerd fantasy because it's stuff that we've already seen. He's going after the popular girl. Yeah. The girl that was never obtainable.
The one that he's lived next to his entire life, who barely knows he exists.
They don't even know each other. I don't know how that works. In Homecoming, he's going after a girl that's on his math.
It's like his entire
on his math
in Homecoming,
like they're all nerds.
Yeah, his entire school is nerds in Homecoming, and this one, it's like Peter is the nerd, and everyone else is normal.
Well, I think that's why I feel like with Garfield's Spider-Man, I think he was too good looking. If they had Leo as Spider-Man, I wouldn't like that either. I don't care how it wouldn't look right.
There's that scene in the beginning of Amazing Spider-Man where even before he gets his powers, I think he like beats up Flash, or like he
stands up for him. He stands up for the kid that Flash is bullying.
Yeah, and it's like he's not the one being bullied by Flash, which ultimately changes that entire dynamic.
Yeah,
dude, it is so funny. These kids on a field trip being chaperoned by someone who's clearly younger than them.
Yeah.
See, that's why it's a throwback. That's old Hollywood. We can't get teenagers to play teenagers. We have to get established adults. 27-year-old Tobey Maguire and 29-year-old Joe Manganiello.
And when Peter's asking MJ to take the picture in front of the spider cubes or whatever, the spider cage, and she's like, "Don't make me look ugly," and it's like,
"Don't make me look ugly."
That's impossible.
The most awkward interaction. Every single one of his interactions with MJ, unbearably awkward.
Well, when he's professing his love for her in the hospital.
When you look in her eyes, and she's looking back in yours.
That's like a scene out of another movie. I think there are certain scenes in this movie that keep it from being a masterpiece, even though I still love it. But to me, that's just a poorly written scene. There was a...
Even though it is funny when Aunt May is like smiling. She's like, "Ooh, something's going on here."
Yeah, like, you should be in a coma, Aunt May. What are you doing? Actually, you know what? Let's talk about Aunt May and Uncle Ben, Cliff Robertson and Rosemary Harris. I want to start with Uncle Ben. What does he have? Maybe 5 minutes of screen time in this movie, but
maybe a little bit more than that.
Death hangs over everything.
Me and Toby were making the same crying face, man.
But it hits every time, right?
Yeah.
Every time.
How many times have you seen this movie? And he just gives off this warm, fatherly presence, the dad jokes that he's making, the relationship that he has with Peter. Of course, the iconic scene of "with great power comes great responsibility," and Peter having that last moment with Uncle Ben on the floor. It's what inspires him to be Spider-Man. And when people complain that there's no Uncle Ben in the MCU, and I go, we've seen it, and you go back and watch this movie and you say, maybe you need some Uncle Ben.
No, you do.
It's
yeah.
It just gives like you said, it gives a reason of why he becomes Spider-Man. It shows you where he's coming from and why he's doing what he's doing.
It's really tangible. Uncle Ben is just trying to connect with his, it's his son, but not his son. But this kid he's raised his entire life, who's been distant lately, he's just trying to, connect with him a little bit more. He's like, it's puberty. He's going through some tough emotions right now, not knowing he's been, given mutant powers by a spider. And all he's doing is just trying to connect with him. And Peter, lashes out. He's like, you're not my father. Don't act like one. And he's just like, right. And I was like, oh, don't be so mean to him.
Real quick, you're telling me you get bit by a spider, you're not going to the hospital? After you feel like complete shit and coming home? You kidding me?
They don't have health insurance. That's why he's not going to the hospital. You're not
telling no one? You're not telling the doctor that's there?
That's a good point. They definitely don't have health insurance. Maybe go to Osborne, right?
Uncle Ben just lost his job.
Yeah, Uncle Ben just loses. Times don't really change.
He don't got time for computers. He literally says that.
And then, but he has no job. And I love Aunt May just saying, we'll figure it out when we figure it out.
Yeah, we'll I don't know. Maybe Tony Stark will come along and help you out. I think my favorite moment of Peter, or, well, in this case, it's Miles, when Miles is bit by the spider and into the Spider-Verse and he just slaps it and just goes on with his day. Nothing really happens. But that was also handled well, and it's juxtaposed with Norman Osborn taking the Green Goblin serum, basically the super soldier serum.
It's cold.
So they're getting their powers at the same time. And two opposite positions here, privilege and poverty. And the way that they're set up as hero and villain, it's perfect. It's kind of the perfect grudge match for Spidey's first movie.
That internal struggle he has with the Goblin is insane. Dafoe is amazing. Just the way that he can portray the two personalities.
Yes. It's a great visual depiction, a metaphor for insanity.
Like that scene when he has the Goblin mask on the chair. Like, he's not talking to the Goblin, he's talking in his face, but he justifies it by putting the Goblin's mask on it, so it's like he's actually talking to the Goblin.
I was so confused as a kid.
So was I.
I was like, are there two of him?
I really thought the mask was like the mask from Jim Carrey. Like, he puts the mask on and becomes the Goblin.
No, the movie convinces you that the mask does have this sort of power like that.
I really loved the scene where he is looking at his reflection in the mirror and the reflection looks like the Goblin, but he turns around and he's like, wait, what's going on? Mm-hmm. And eventually, they just cut to different versions of the reflection. And one is Norman Osborn and one is the Goblin. He truly, in the beginning, does not realize that he's like, oh, all of my enemies are conveniently dying. The people that tried to oust me from my company, the military contractor who no longer wants to buy my tech. He's like, they're all dead now. That's worked out really nicely for me.
The hell's going on? Who's helping me out here?
And his performance, like Teddy mentioned, the way that he can reconstruct his face when he is talking to himself in the mirror, and he's got that
he looks
scowl.
manic.
Yeah, definitely. And then it goes back to the regular normal Norman, and he looks terrified of what he is seeing in that mirror.
He's got a cold sweat.
Right, but you can't feel sympathetic for him because, like you said, it is all about greed. It's about keeping his company. Yeah.
You know how much I sacrificed?
When that scientist says back to formula, I was like, oh, bro.
Yeah.
It's about to be over for you. I thought you were going to get fired, but you ended up getting
face when you said that. he had to have known he was dying.
I'll tell you what, Heath Ledger is the undisputed GOAT. This guy's number 2 for me. I really think that he's right behind Heath Ledger as one of the best comic book villains.
There's not many out there, man, and he's definitely up there.
Rewatching this movie has really made me excited to see what he does in No Way Home.
Well, did you hear the rumors that he's supposed to be the main villain?
Ooh.
I like that. I like that a lot.
And he's got such a fucking gruesome ending.
Yeah.
I mean, and that fight, the fights that they have throughout the movie are very well directed. But that last one is a fucking grudge
I did
match.
think it was funny, though, the scene. It's at the fair when the shareholders, like the other people in his company, he kills them. Spider-Man gets him to go away by ripping something out of his glider, and he's like, well, I'll see you again, Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
And he dips. I was like, oh.
Well, that part right there, when I was saying like the 90s cheese was there, it's like him flying off like that is like such like a comic book 90s TV show.
We'll meet again, Spider-Man.
I want to know what the public, like people our age that were watching this, thought when they saw that. Like,
Oh,
I mean,
they probably
after-
thought it was amazing. They're like, that fight was incredible.
Yeah.
Look at that glider. It looks so real.
I guess times were different back then. It's like we're like spoiled now.
Out am I? Just turns them to fucking skeletons.
Very dark. There's a lot of death in the Spider-Man. Dude,
There-
dark Spider-Man. The death with the glider suit.
There are true moments of horror in this movie.
for real.
Like
Aunt May.
Aunt May is
Yeah.
praying. You know, she's doing her little prayer, and he barges in, and he's like, "Finish it, finish it."
Deliver us from evil.
I was like,
Yeah, he ran up on her.
it was funny, but I was also terrified. Like she's screaming, and it's funny, but I was like, I was so scared.
As
and
a kid, that was also very scary.
Bro,
and
there,
she's
there
like,
was a jump
those
scare.
yellow eyes. I was like, oh.
What's the jump scare?
There was a jump scare when after he took the serum the next morning when he was talking to Harry. Harry wakes him up, and it was just like a flashback quick of last night. It
Yeah.
scared the shit out of
Well,
me.
that's Sam Raimi bringing in those horror sensibilities. He's got the great scene in Spider-Man 2 that we will talk about, Doc Ock on the operating table, and he's got a bunch of them here, man. Even the Green Goblin pretending to be the old woman in the burning
Yeah,
building.
I completely forgot about
creepy.
that. He saves the baby, which he does a full backflip with that baby, by the way.
You run out of the house with your baby. I hate that lady so much. Just seeing that makes me cringe.
And then the cop, he's like,
Yeah, I think you
listen.
forgot something.
And he looks at the cop and he's like, so you're going to go let me save that person? And he's like, but you have to come back. And he's like, I'm not coming back.
Right.
Then he goes in and then it's the Green Goblin. And I was like, I legitimately completely forgot. I haven't watched this movie in so long before yesterday.
Well, to me, the best scene of the movie is when Green Goblin runs up on J. Jonah Jameson and he refuses
That's
to
a jump scare, yo.
I love it.
He's so fucking iconic in this role. He's such a sleazeball. Only cares about money, but when push came to shove, he didn't sell out Peter Parker.
Love
he,
it.
He was
Love to
ready
see
to
it.
fucking die.
Love
Yeah.
to see it.
To me, that's the best moment of
Which,
the movie.
concerning J. Jonah Jameson, I love that that little like thread of like his wife keeps calling about like decorations.
What's he doing on my front page?
Mr. Jameson, your wife is on line 1. She needs to know if you...
Mr. Jameson is a page 6 problem.
We have a page 1 problem. Shut up.
And it's like, what? He's like, she wants to. Oh, she says the tile that you want is out, and he's like, tell her we'll put a carpet there. Or it's like, pick one, whichever one's cheaper. How quickly he has like a response for everything. It's like anyone asks him any question, he's like, do this, and it's like, we can't do that. Do it anyway.
I think that first sequence, when he's first introduced, is one of the best written scenes ever. It's so snappy. It's moving at 1,000 miles a minute. And like you said, he's got the perfect response for everything. And it feels like this is just the man who's like this. Like he's the New York newspaper
And when
man.
Peter comes with his pictures, and he's like, I can give you 200 for these, and he's like, I want a job, and he's like, I can give you 300. That's a freelancer rate. You don't got a job though. And he says it like 5 times. He's showing him out. He's like, you
No
do not
jobs.
have a job here. Like, you can just keep bringing the pictures, and maybe I'll buy them off of you. Which right after that, Peter has the most awkward encounter with the receptionist. He's like, hey, my name's Peter
He's
Parker.
trying. He's
And-
trying.
Is it more awkward than
It's-
the exchanges they have in Spider-Man 3? When they're like eye
Oh my
fucking in
God.
the middle of the office.
Yeah.
He's like breathing all over. Spider-Man 3 is going to be funny.
Peter Parker. Peter.
Parker! Miss Brent? That's not the position I hired you for.
But yeah, no, J. Jonah, it's so great that they brought him back and that he's also going to be in the new one, because that's a bit that just doesn't get old. And J.K. Simmons,
He's so good in it.
he goes on
He's
to
so
win an
convincing.
Oscar for Whiplash 10 or 15 years later, whenever that movie came out. And here he's such a cartoon character. So the way, I love Stan Lee, but thank God they didn't get him for this role.
I really can't picture Stan Lee playing that. I really can't.
J. Jonah Jameson is in the history of Spider-Man is like another one of his villains. So
He does him in every time with the headlines. He screws him.
He doesn't sell out Peter, but as soon as Spider-Man showed up to save him, he goes, aha!
he's like, I knew you were
I
involved
knew
with
it.
this.
He switched up real quick. The man was on death's door.
Oh, I loved when he's like, when Peter is like, that's a defamation or whatever he says. It's slander, and he's like, actually, when it's in print, it's libel. He can sue me.
He's the best. He truly is the best.
Did you guys think? All right. He probably wasn't, but did it seem like they were trying to like sabotage Kirsten Dunst with this writing? She was always in distress, and she did a great job of like not succumbing to being that damsel in distress. And she made every scene make you feel for her.
See, I have a problem with the chemistry between Peter and Mary Jane. I think the character of Mary Jane herself is a very strong character in this movie. She's got her own goals. She wants to be an actress, and she realized that, you know, it's not as simple as just moving to New York and fulfilling your dream. And her back and forth with her family issues and the relationship she has with Harry, the love triangle works better than the relationship between Peter and Mary Jane for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say I found like the tension between Harry and Peter as like, yeah, Peter never tried to go after this girl, and Harry did, and it worked out, you know, for a little bit at least. And how that relates to like Harry's relationship with his father, like he is self-sabotaging that relationship with Mary Jane because he so badly wants his father's approval.
Right.
And Peter,
he could have had it at Thanksgiving.
ironically, Peter is like the one who Norman is like, I can be a father figure for you. Like, you're a family. So, like, there's that tension. There's the tension with Mary Jane. But yeah, like, zero chemistry, in my opinion.
After what you just said, I'm putting two and two together. It was like Defoe or Osborn's character really wanted to be there for Peter Parker. And then when he found out that he was Spider-Man, that fucking tore his world apart.
Yeah, no,
and that's where the conflict came in crazy with the Goblin.
Right, and they both kind of share that, where it's more evident in Spider-Man 2 that he's being pulled apart by these two personas, but in this movie, yeah, Green Goblin that's his downfall, is that he is being ripped apart.
Warrior attacks neither body nor mind.
Tell me how!
The heart, Osborn. First, we attack his heart.
But yeah, just going back to I think James Franco as Harry Osborn. It's funny because he's a pretty boy, but he's also very awkward. So you could see why he would become friends.
He's a nerd too.
Yeah, he's not as nerdy, but you could see that he'll rely on Peter.
He's a misfit in a different type of way. Like, right? He is, I guess, self-conscious about being so rich, right? Like, he doesn't want his dad to park in front of the museum that the field trip is. But,
right, he's just trying to be a normal kid.
Which is so opposite of what you would normally see. It's like you would think the rich kid is like crazy, is like stunting.
Yeah, so it's
up in the roles.
He's like similarly bullied, right? Like, I feel like in contemporarily, like the rich kids like that aren't gonna get bullied by like Flash and them. Except this time they're like, oh, is your daddy gonna fire my dad? Like, what?
I hated these bullies, man. They fucking sucked. I hated looking at them
because they're just grown ass adults.
Peter was truly never going to win because it's like he beats up Flash and they're still like, ew.
I know. Wow, you really are a freak.
Like, wow, you're an asshole, man. Use words, not violence. Jeez, Parker.
And you know, the Parker luck where nothing works out for Peter no matter how hard he tries. And I really
It gets bad in Spider-Man too, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's the Parker look that I miss from the current MCU. Like, you know, a lot of it's not going right for Tom Holland, Peter Parker right now. But like in this one, it's like you truly get that nothing will go right for Peter, even when he thinks it's going right. Like, it'll end terribly. Like, he thinks he has this new father figure in Norman Osborn, and then it turns out Norman Osborn is the one who is trying to kill everyone he loves in him.
Right, yeah, no matter what, something always ends up going wrong. And even with his relationship with Mary Jane moving forward in these movies, and obviously with Harry as well. It's hard for me to ever see this Peter Parker interacting with Robert Downey's Iron Man. Although I would love a mention of that in the new movie, like, oh, my Tony Stark. You know, just a brief mention. But yeah, no, he feels like...
I was trying to see any Easter eggs if they had any.
Well, they mentioned Doctor Strange in the second one.
Yeah.
Which is funny. But yeah, he's very much a character who's on his own. He does still have that support system with Aunt May, but once again, that loss of Uncle Ben when they come home, an incredible shot of them just embracing.
Hugging, yeah.
And which I totally forgot that it's like an hour into this movie, he graduates from high school.
Yeah. He's already in college.
I was like, oh, word?
Sick apartment, man.
Yeah.
Horrible Thanksgiving,
That's why he is in such a trash apartment in the next one.
I had to beat an old lady with a stick to get these cranberries.
When she asked him to cut the turkey and he gave her that look and he starts rubbing the knives together, he's sicko, man. I also love the screenshot of when the blood falls and it's become such a great meme of his face. It's visible suspicion.
Do you think right there he was thinking of killing Aunt May because she pressed him like that and he's like his aggression was about to take over and he honestly contemplated doing something to her?
I think it's at that point it's like the two sides. It's like the Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin part. They're like merging in
close,
a way. Yeah. So it's like more difficult for him to be an like regular Norman Osborn. So yeah, I really think he was considering doing something to Aunt May.
Like that shot of him going up in the elevator. He looked
and he just casually
tears
apart Mary Jane. He's just like, you know, she's just trying to get your trust fund. It's like all women are like this. And it's like, oh, okay, Norman.
I love Harry. They're right outside the apartment. Norman is screaming at the top of his lungs. And he's like, you heard that?
That's what you said. He's self-sabotaging his relationship because he could have just stopped. You could have defended her.
Yeah, he didn't defend her. She's like, oh, thanks, you know, for defending me. Or, you know, not saying anything at all. And he's just like, oh, my father is a great man. And it's like,
he really did just say, well, that's my daddy and he's awesome, so shut up. Daddy issues to the extreme.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good catch by you by calling him a misfit of a different sort.
Especially because we know, like, in the future series, how he takes on the Green Goblin mantle because, you know, he thinks Spider-Man killed his dad, which terrible move on Peter's part to just bring Norman Osborn's dead body and leave it in the apartment. Like, bring him to a hospital, man.
Yeah, but he was trying to, you know.
Yeah, but also
he was trying to do something good.
He's impaled.
He fucked up though.
Say Harry doesn't walk in. And that body's there for like 20 hours. You're going to walk in like, oh, what's that? Oh my fucking God.
But also like...
walking on your dad wrapped up in...
rotting.
And he's literally
in the
like...
goblin suit.
The glider has impaled him. Double wounds in his abdomen. What are they going to think looking at something like that?
And he tries, man. That Spidey sense really saves Peter at the end because he puts on a hell of a performance of, it was the formula and I'm being, I'm going crazy. It's not really me.
No, he almost convinced you. He almost convinced me that he was like
coming to wondering, even after like
the glider pokes up in the screen.
I've seen it so many times. Yeah, the glider in the background, like, hey there. I've seen it so many times, and every time I'm thinking, you know what?
Listen to him.
Give him a break.
Listen to him.
Yeah, cut him some slack.
He was going to lose his trade. He was going to lose his funding. You know,
he's a good father.
Figuring it out.
He's going to lose his funding.
Yeah, but think about it. In his eyes, his world's over. You know, it's that quick that the defense is it the army,
the military.
The military is going to like defund you like that, and everything you've done is gone to shit.
They gave that man the bear hug. They're like, but the board voted unanimous. There is no shot for you.
It's like, we
buddy.
are ousting you. This is no longer your company.
Great arc.
And I wonder where his character begins in the new movie, if you get what I mean. Because with Doc Ock, it could be a situation, I was transported here, I don't know what the fuck is going on. Because he doesn't officially die at the end of 2. But he's pretty dead. Well, they can say that he fell into the thing, that energy thing, and it transported him. That's the prevailing theory.
I've been assuming, though, because we do get that bit in the new trailer where Doctor Strange is like, listen, they all go back to their own realities and they die. So it could be we're catching them. It's like, oh, this is a little detour that they took.
But what does that mean for this one? Does that mean that they have to die in this one?
This is what happened when Peter pulled the thing out of the glider. He ended up flying to the
and he comes back and he's extra pressed. He's like, listen, I just got beat by another one of you in a different dimension. After he's knocked out Peter and they're like on that roof and they're both wearing the masks, right? And Green Goblin has to go extra with his body movements because we're getting zero facial expressions. It's so hilarious.
That's a thing people dislike to this day.
It's like the movie's like campy. Like superheroes are campy. They just, current Marvel doesn't lean into that as much, or its technology has made it so it, like they're able to animate his eyes so we get more expression there.
Right. I
feel like they've said this, that Peter's mask comes off so often in the original trilogy because it's like, otherwise you're looking at a blank face. Then the whole movie is just scenes like that one on the rooftop where they both have to do crazy body stuff, so we get they're pantomiming essentially.
Peter's funny too because he's just sitting there, can't move, and he's like, "You're a murderer," and there is no expression. That is actually pretty funny.
Defoe was so good in that scene, though.
No, that's
when
why,
he smacks him on the back of the head.
I feel like I saw this.
He leans up next to him.
Yeah, he leans on.
I saw this on a Letterboxd review, but someone was like, "Why did they make Willem Dafoe wear a mask that looks exactly like his face?"
That's why people get frustrated with it, because he's got such a brilliant face, and it's the vibe of the movie, so I don't hate it either, and I'm glad they're bringing back that costume.
It's also right, like this is a superhero movie before there was really, like the Marvel formula doesn't exist yet at this point, obviously. And it's something that, they later perfect. And, the fact that Iron Man is the one that kickstarted the MCU really sets a tone for, that kind of like snarky, self-confident type of hero, which is why, I think the MCU is in this current course and why, this Peter is the way he is. But this one, he's truly like, He's alone. He's a weird loner kid who didn't make any friends in high school and suddenly has powers, and then his uncle tragically dies, and it's like, what do you do with that? It's so funny when he wakes up after the spider bite. He's like, oh, doesn't need my glasses anymore, and Aunt May is like everything okay? And he like looks in his pants and he's like, oh yeah, it's way bigger or whatever he says.
No, she says, big change? He looks at his dick, right?
Yeah, he's like, real big change.
No, he was looking at his muscles.
Right, but I wonder
No,
if...
but he was literally like, he pulls out his pants and looks
Did
down.
I miss that?
Yeah.
I thought they were hinting at it could go either way.
Yeah.
That's for the adults. For the kids, they're going to think it's like abs.
That's
but
hilarious.
Yeah, no, he looks down. He looks... Big change.
Not for nothing. Can Maguire put on some muscle? If you're gonna play, like, I mean, he looked nothing.
The
he had
superhero
no
thing has
muscles there.
changed. The what a superhero body looks like on screen, at least, has changed a lot because
Pattinson's trying to reverse that.
we know what we
Go
got
back to like right now.
in
regular bodies.
Yeah.
Far From Home. Like, we see Tom Holland and how much muscle he's put on. Like, completely different.
I also don't think Spider-Man's a character where you don't need that physique because he's just
More nimble. Yeah.
right. He's more nimble, and the powers are totally it scientifically make no sense. So it doesn't even matter if he has muscle or not. You know, like the strength that he has, super strength never makes sense. I guess for Batman, because he is a human, you want him to be a bit bigger. But at the end of the day, once again, it's one of those old school elements.
No, but watching it now, when he wakes up, I was like, oh, he's probably gonna be ripped. And I forgot he didn't look like I thought he was gonna look. I was
So
like, oh,
he
that's
is
it?
like slightly
That's all you got,
more
McGuire?
ripped.
He looks like he worked out for like 2 straight weeks,
they
and he's starting to put on some.
They have to give you they give you that shot when he's sick and of like his body, and it's just like, oh, he looks like a normal dude. And so when you get his like new muscled body, it's like clearly like there's a difference there. Like we see a difference, but it's not anything crazy that we're like used to in more modern superhero movies.
Yeah, there's so many the way the dialogue is written. I keep making this point, but it's like a blast from the past. When Mary Jane is running out of her house, it's such generic, cliched. You're nothing. You're never gonna be nothing. Just like her. I have to go to school. Who's stopping you? so old timey, you know. Or even
That's what I was saying earlier. Was every time she comes into the scene, she's like in distress. And it's like they were trying to like make her like she wasn't.
The upside down
That's an
kiss
old comic
scene,
trope, right?
Yeah.
The damsel in distress, and they definitely lean into it. I think
the upside down kiss scene is iconic, right?
so iconic and disgusting.
The leading up to that, though, like she and Peter having that conversation, she's like, I'm gonna go meet Harry for dinner now. Instantly starts pouring, and she's just like, okay. and all of a sudden, it's like it is corny, right? Because she's like walking down this avenue, those two guys like point at her and they're like, oh, let's go get her.
Yeah,
and
let's do
all
a
of a sudden
crime.
she's in this alleyway and all these dudes come out of nowhere, and I'm like, oh, okay.
It's out of a video game, really.
Yeah.
That
It's so
scene.
typical. I mean, even when he starts solving, that's one of the best bits of Homecoming, is that when he's out being Spider-Man, he's got nothing to do.
Yeah.
He's like trying to help old ladies cross
Right.
the street. But in this one, it's like there's a bank being robbed, and there's a diamond store being robbed, and
Yeah.
there's a terrorist attack. All in a day's work. So that's where it feels like a comic book, like those old comic books from the 50s and 60s. It's all about the fantastical elements. It's all
I
about
respect it more now in
escapism.
Homecoming.
Right.
I respect that a lot more now.
Although this movie did have a great montage of New Yorkers commenting on Spider-Man. I thought that was very funny.
Some kind of freaky Lou or something. Wackadoo. He stinks, and I don't like it.
There are
That
a lot
held
of
up.
things I forgot about this movie just by like, I saw it when I was so young, and it's so universally known. Like, the number of memes that I forgot came from this movie. I forgot that Tobey Maguire's crying face when Uncle Ben dies is a meme.
Yeah, that was an early meme, right? Yeah.
And it's,
Even the one recently with Mary Jane yelling at the dude from the diner.
yeah.
That became a huge meme.
It's just like, this movie is so like ingrained in pop culture that like sometimes you see things and you're so used to it being in a different context.
How about that fucking score?
Amazing.
Yeah.
When he sees the feelers growing out of his fingers, and he's like, I'm
So
gonna go
stupid.
climb this wall. He sees them and he's immediately like, I'm gonna climb this wall. But the music is like, it swells. It's so great.
Oh.
I was like, yeah, go climb that wall, Peter.
It's such a great,
Makes you
simple
want to climb
moment.
the wall.
Yeah, right. Maybe I can climb this fucking wall. Play that Elfman.
I do think it's so great in this movie because He's clearly like so bitter. He gets these powers, people still treat him awful, and he's like, oh, they'll hate me like no matter what I do, essentially. And he thinks he's supposed to get like the $3,000, and the guy gyps him because he's like, oh, the guy cheats him essentially because he's like, oh, you didn't pin him in the full 3 minutes, or you didn't last the full 3 minutes because you pinned him too early. And he's like, you're lucky I'm giving you this much. And it's clearly like Peter's like, there are bullies everywhere. He's realizing, I think, in that moment, like, adults aren't guaranteed to be nice to you and things like this. And so,
it stops him from stopping the bully that ends up killing Uncle Ben.
So you understand his bitterness, right?
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't stop this guy because he's like, I'm done letting bullies walk all over me. Like, for a second, he thinks maybe...
He thinks he got one over on him, too. He was so happy you let him go.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
He thinks it's like it could be this like maybe slightly empowering moment for him, and he lets this guy go who's just robbed him. And he feels so good when
he throws that line back in his face.
Yeah, he feels so good about it. And then later when he realizes that the guy who killed Uncle Ben is that exact man that he let run into the elevator. And
well, no, it's the Sandman.
Oh, whatever.
Are we putting that body on Peter Parker? No.
I feel like
no, that's on Sandman.
At the beginning of this movie, when that guy he falls out the window,
yeah, that
and
body,
he's dead.
That's Peter Parker's fault.
Yeah,
you're putting that on him.
He was ruthless with the way he was banging his head through the glass.
Hey, man, it's his first real like vengeance fight. You know,
I'm not putting that body on him. That's a
casualty.
You come at the best. Yeah, you best not miss, or else you might fall out a fucking window. That's a Batman manslaughter. Well, I want to ask you because Teddy's going to be coming back for Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3. But we'll probably get you on The Amazing Spider-Man to talk about Garfield. But Toby, the possibility of him coming back in No Way Home, I mean, that must excite you, right? Just wanted to get your quick thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think it'll be so fun to see him in this movie. Especially like where they're placing him in like his Spider-Man career, depending on when these villains are coming out.
Right.
But seeing him interact...
Do you want to see Old Man Toby?
I think if maybe he kind of has that Peter B. Parker vibe from Into the Spider-Verse.
That would be so fun.
That would be really,
such
really
a slacker.
fun.
Yeah, like
maybe a little bit overweight.
Fat guy, yeah.
He's kind of like, he's the one who's always been down on his luck. Nothing has quite gone right for him.
It's so true, though. It's so true. Like, it makes sense.
Yeah,
it's gotten progressively
he gets
easier.
pulled into this world where he sees this younger version of himself in a different universe. And it's like Iron Man's his best friend. His life is subsidized.
This man's got a per diem.
Can they just make a live action Into the Spider-Verse? That's all I really want to see.
Well, this is basically what it's going to be, yeah.
Just nail it, please.
All right, guys, thank you for joining us on this review, and Marissa and Teddy, thank you for joining me. Like I said, we'll be back throughout the week. We're going to be dropping these Spider-Man movies leading up till No Way Home. I forgot about that. This is dropping the week of No Way Home, so we're just going Spider-Man, 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 Spider-Man.
Wait, so we doing too soon?
Yeah, no, you got to get on that.
All right.
Damn, we were making some good points in that video. Hey guys, Aaron the Nerd Suit Monkey here. Before we end this video, I want to give a quick shout out to our Patreon supporters. What can I say about you guys that I haven't already said about myself? You are the most important part of the channel and the main reason we keep going strong. Like Bo says, you keep the lights on in the fridge so the fridge is full. Or something like that. So, from everyone here at Nerd Soup, I'd like to thank you guys for your continued support. If you're interested in joining the ranks of our patron supporters, head over to patreon.com/nerdsoup and check out the rewards we offer to our patrons. We recently dropped some new stickers for you guys to check out, or you could choose a tier that will allow you to select a movie, show, or video game for us to review. We've got a full slate of fan-suggested reviews coming your way, and we're really excited about the chance to review some of those movies and shows. We've also got t-shirts, mugs, behind-the-scenes videos showing how we bring our videos to life. And once again, thank you to all our Patreon pledgers who have been supporting us throughout the years. Without you, we wouldn't be able to convert all your pledges into cryptocurrency, so thank you from my future self for making us rich.